Hello and welcome to the 9 to 5 CEO podcast. I'm Tremaine, a.k.a. the 9 to 5 landlord.
And I'm Zena, a.k.a. Zenadixoninc.
Yo, what's going on? What's going on? So, before we get started, how's your Saturday/week been?
Hectic. So hectic. Work is hectic. Things are picking up with the consultations for the multifamily. So trying to balance work and all those end of year deliverables, plus trying to serve, my clients and having insomnia, it's the worst.
No, I feel you. I had some carpenters and painters come this week for a unit of mine. And then the lady downstairs, her sister wants to stay there, but a big portion of her income is alimony. And some months it hasn't been coming in. So I'm like, man, do I want to do it? Because I know she'll stay there long term. But on the other end, what if alimony don't come the next month?
Right. Oh, man.
I'm going back and forth between that. So I got that. Then I got a lady that's on Section 8 that looked at a unit downstairs. So I got to get that stuff ready for Section 8 approval. So going on my end. We're getting busy too. January tax season. So we revving up. So
I know it's going to be crazy for you.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, are you going to follow your gut with the tenant with the alimony?
Probably, because I know her tenant. I know she's gonna stay there for 20 years because her sister lived down there. She's been there for 20 years.
Oh, okay.
She's a little older, so I think she's at that age where she wants to be close to family. So I know if I can make it work, or if she can make it work, then it'll be a good ideal situation. But I might demand a little more on the front end from security deposit for those kind of circumstances. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Sure. So in today's show, we are going to give an introduction of Zena, my co-host, and we can kind of just get her story out the way as far as, what she's doing now, how she got to this point, and just her upbringing overall. So if you don't mind, could you just explain to everybody what you all do now, since it's so much?
Sure. I am a software developer by profession. That is my 9 to 5. And I also am a new real estate investor and a new Turo business owner. And I also now have a consultancy to help other people buy their first multifamily property and a co-host for a podcast.
Dope. Well, let's take it back from the roots. So growing up, was there a lot of investors and entrepreneurs within your family, or were you kind of the first to kind of take that leap of faith?
Oh, no, So like a lot of Black families, back in the day, there was hardly any financial literacy. A lot of people in the family were on Section 8 and welfare, and it was just such a normal thing that, no one questioned if things could be better or different. To be honest, I didn't know that, my mom was on welfare when I was really young, like in elementary school, because we were wearing fur coats and cashmere. Those things were nice. So it didn't equate to me that was that we didn't have money, but she would splurge on these things. It wasn't until I was in middle school that I had to go to the store with some food stamps, and I got a rude awakening that we were poor and that food stamps were bad in the eyes of other, my peers. Their families was on welfare too, but they clowned us because, that's what kids do. And I felt like a lot of shame in that. Not just shame for my mom, but just shame for myself, because, when you're a kid growing up and kids are teasing you, you're just like, well, what did I do wrong? So it just stuck with me. So fast forward to me being a young adult, I always worked. I always, worked 2 or 3 jobs because 1, I didn't want to ever ask for anyone for anything. And 2, I never wanted to be in a situation where I had to be on, public assistance. And just grinding it out, it built my character. It made me very resilient. But I did learn that I can work smarter. So that's what made me get into IT. IT was paying the big bucks.
So what was it like for you coming out of, like, so let's say you get out of high school, were you one of those ones that's like, yo, I'm out the house, I'm 18, I'm gone? Or was you more like, let me just kind of find my ground and like your first, entry to adulthood? Kind of explain what's your frame of thinking around that time?
Yeah, I left really early. I had my first apartment when I was 17 with my boyfriend, and who became my baby daddy, and that's a whole thing we could talk about another time. But I've always had a very independent spirit, I had to grow up really fast. And just, having my own place after I graduated from high school just made sense to me. And, he worked, I worked, we just made it work. I did have a full scholarship to Temple University. And, being young, dumb in love, I did not take advantage of it. His mother had passed away and I felt like I needed to take care of him. And I fumbled the bag, basically. Looking back on that, I wish I had done things differently, but you just move forward. So like I said, that's what led me to go into IT, because I knew I wanted to make, 6 figures. And basically I went and got the training that I needed. And then I started applying for jobs. And because I was at the right place at the right time, I was able to secure the bag in that respect. And I've been rocking with IT ever since. Because I do like being in the space where it's male dominated, and, coming in as a woman, they always underestimate you. So it's just like, they're like, oh, hi, are you the executive assistant? I'm like, no, I'm the tech lead. What's up? Let me build this thing.
That's dope. That's dope. So question, a lot of times before you get the job that you're dreaming of, you kind of dream of this lifestyle that comes with getting the job. So my first question was, did the money feel like a lot when you got it? And at what point did you feel like, hey, yo, I'm gonna have to do a couple other things to really live the life that I want to do?
To be honest, because I had grown up with my mom, I don't want to say she was frugal, but there was a pendulum. So sometimes we would have like hamburger helper, but then we have fur coats. So it's just like kind of weird. So I grew up in the middle. So I wouldn't splurge too much. When I started making more money, it was just like, okay, it's more money just to put in the bank. I didn't even have the forethought to say, let me buy, property or any investments or anything like that. I just didn't have the knowledge. I was just like in that hamster wheel of being a young mom, working, making sure everything's taken care of, working, and just, trying to keep my head above water in terms of, just doing everything by myself. But it was, to be honest, Tremaine, it wasn't until the pandemic that my eyes opened and I was like, I could own property. I could own something more than a single family. Turo, that's a thing. Like, just the pandemic, I say all the time, it's a blessing and a curse, because yes, a lot of it, it devastated the world. There's a global devastation, but it opened my eyes to so much possibility. And I was able to change my whole trajectory for my family in a matter of 6 months, right? Because that's, 6 months ago that I bought the property, and 6 months ago we started Turo. So it's been a crazy ride.
Okay, so we're gonna get into that. So fast forward to the pandemic, which is what, 2020, beginning of 2020. Explain to the people how your mind frame shifted during the pandemic to now, as far as from what you were seeing on social media and how you acted upon, the motivation you were getting from others.
Yeah. So, of course, everybody was sent to work from home, and, everybody's just getting used to that, work from home thing. I've worked from home recently for a lot of jobs. So it wasn't like new to me, but my company was taking a long time to ramp up and, figure things out. So I had a lot of downtime, and I would be on Instagram just scrolling, and I came across a post that led me to another post, to another post. You know how you get into that rabbit hole. And I was just like, wow, this is some good information. So I purchased a course, and I went through the course, and it was like a light bulb went off. And I was just like, oh my God, why didn't I know this? Why don't people share this information? And I made a decision at that point, I'm going to be a real estate investor, because it made so much sense to me to buy a property, collect rent. After the mortgage is paid, you have this cash flow. I was just like, that is a no-brainer. I'm on it, sign me up. And it was the same thing with Turo, scrolling late one night, because I have insomnia and I'm always, on Instagram, and one thing just led to another, and I came across that, and I was like, Airbnb for cars? Because I knew Airbnb, that blew up. Everybody's using it, and I was like, this is pretty new. Let's take a look at this. Convincing my husband, and at first he was a little trepidatious, but then I was just like, let's just try it. If it don't work, then we could just park our car back in the driveway, but it
What Turo
did.
course was it that you took?
I'm sorry.
What Turo course was it that you took that kind of gave you the confidence? Like, oh, okay, that's how this works.
Yeah, it was the infamous CPA.
Shout out to
His name,
Brian. Shout out to
yeah,
Brian. Yeah, that's a fact. Like, I want the plug bro course. That's why I asked you that. So
yeah.
for sure.
And so, him and the Wealthy G, they collaborate on it. So anytime I have questions, I DM them guys, and they're just mad supportive and so smart about everything. So, but yeah, to me, like when I come across some information and if it makes sense, because I'm a very logical thinker, I'm not gonna shy away from it. I'm not a fearful person. So if it makes sense to me, I'm gonna jump out there. Like with the podcast, you was like, "Yo, let's start a podcast." I was like, "All right, let's go."
Thanks. Okay, so question I have for you about how long did you collect this information until you put together an actual plan for you to put into action? Because a lot of times, people that watch people on Instagram, they listen to podcasts, they take courses, but there's a huge lapse between them actually taking action on the information and them just collecting the information. So for you, how long was that gap of period in which you were getting information prior to you acting on it?
Okay, so I can tell you almost the exact dates. I would say January 19th of 2020, I came across two courses, one from Doug Depp and one from Julian Gordon, the multifamily movement. In March, I got my pre-approval, and I would say towards the end of March, I started looking for properties. Started first in New Jersey, couldn't find anything that I liked. Then I made a decision to look in Chicago. So March, April, I had a contract. Well, not a contract. I put an offer on a property. That fell through because of FHA issues, not for me, but for the owner, and because it was overpriced, like $100,000, and FHA was like, no, we're not doing that. And then I put in another offer. When was it? May, for another property, and in June I closed. So I was trying to move fast because, one, I just didn't want to talk myself out of it, because sometimes you can get into that mind space where you're like, wow, I need this much for a down payment, this is going to be a commitment, this is the biggest purchase I've ever made. But when I got the information, I was so fired up, I couldn't even sleep, because I don't sleep anyway, but I was on like all the sites like Redfin and Realtor.com all night long, just looking at properties and sending them to my realtor, and like, I want to schedule a tour. So I had made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to let the year end without me owning my first property.
Dope. So talk about the timeline and just the buying experience of your first one. So when did you know it was going to be yours? Was there a lot of competition on the offering? And just kind of walk me through that.
So at the height of when I first was looking at the first property, it was mad competition. They had got like 25 offers. Now here I am with my little FHA, and at that time, people wasn't checking for FHA. They was like, we want cash or conventional, and so, I wrote a compelling letter, I think, and the seller was like, oh, okay, let's rock with her. And that would have went through because, everything was good to go, but because they had outpriced the property, because it still have to go according to comps, it just wasn't mathing. So that fell through. The second one, I was the first person to view it because like I said, I don't sleep. So as soon as it hit my filter, I sent a text to my realtor. I said, I want to see this today. And he was like, okay. And as soon as I saw it, I put an offer on it. And I told my realtor, I was like, don't be dragging ass. I said, put the offer in today. As soon as we get off this FaceTime. And he was like, okay. And he, the owner accepted the offer. He did try to get me to increase the offer, but I was like, no, that's my highest and best, but I just was like, I had learned in that environment that you have to be quick and you have to be able to craft a good offer. So I had like, what was it? Something about, there was like a gap a gap approval. It was something that, and I can't remember right now because it's just escaping me. But I just crafted a really good offer, and he was for it. I said an as-is inspection and some other things, and he was like, okay, let's go.
30-day closing?
30-day closing, yes, that was the other thing.
So walk me through the mind frame of those 30 days. Because a lot of times you have accepted offer, you're excited, and then the nerves of actually having the property kind of sink in. So walk me through how you was, day 1 through 30 prior to closing.
Yes. So I was excited that he accepted the offer. The inspection came back, awesome, because basically it was a rehab. He had did everything already. The price was a little high, but I was just like, I know that I'm gonna add value, so it's gonna be good. So I was excited. Everything was coming back. The appraisal came back from FHA, came back good, and the seller didn't have to do anything. So we went into underwriting. Underwriting was good. I had my desktop folder with all my information and all my documents ready to go, and they was like, "Oh, can we?" There's a line item in your statement for $500. What's that for? And then I had just did my taxes in May because they had given an extension, right? So we owed $17,000. No biggie, we made a payment plan. We was gonna take care of it, or we're taking care of it. And it was like, oh. So I told him, I was like, that's, that was my down payment for my my tax bill. And it was like, skirt, hold up. It was like, we need a document that says that you entered into an agreement. So call the IRS and tell them to, put a letter together for you. And I'm just like freaking out because it's COVID. It's the height of COVID. Nobody's in the office. Nobody's taking calls. And I'm like, how am I supposed to get this letter? There's nobody answering the phone. It was like, well, we can't move forward unless you get the letter. When I tell you tears, because this close, I like hot tears. My ears is hot. I'm just like, I'm so upset. And I'm just like, oh my God, what can I do? So I gathered myself and I went online and I just was clicking around on the IRS site and, if you set up a payment plan. So I just kept clicking in. And what I did was I found my agreement and I just increased it to $1,000 because it was initially $500. I increased it to $1,000 and I was able to do a screen grab of the document because it wouldn't let you print it for some reason. Excuse me. And I sent it to my lender and I said, is this good enough? And he was like, oh my God, how did you get this letter? I was like, I don't even know. And he sent it to underwriting and then we was good to go. Everything moved so fast from that point. I was like in shock. Like they was just like, yeah, we're clear to close. Because when you get that letter, that email that says CTC, you're just like, oh my God, this is really happening. And my attorney was like, okay, we need you to fly out here on Monday so we can do the closing. And I was just like, they just was telling me that it wasn't going to work because of this letter. And he was like, no, you good to go. And so I booked a flight, which was mad expensive because, when you do things last minute, it's, very expensive. And the whole time I was just feeling very nauseous on the plane because I just was in a state of shock, Tremaine. I just was like, I can't believe I did this by myself and made it happen. And when I, just feeling nauseous, I couldn't even eat on the plane. Then I took an Uber to the title place and the whole time just like these massive butterflies in my stomach, and, we're sitting there with my attorney and he's like, this is going to be fine. And he's giving me my paperwork. And as I sign each document, I'm just my smile is like this big. My husband, as I'm signing, I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm actually doing it. He was like, you go, So I felt like this huge sense of accomplishment. And so after the title and all of that, I met with the owner. He gave me the keys. He was so nice. He was like, if you need anything, let me know. I can hook you up with handyman and da 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 da. And so we all went to the building. And I just had to stand across the street from the building and just look at it like, oh my God, I own this. This is mine. So it was a whirlwind for sure. Just like you think you're not going to get it. And then on a dime, it's like, okay, it's yours. Okay, come sign the paperwork. It was crazy.
So, and for those wondering, it's a 4-unit property, correct?
Yes.
4-unit property in Chicago. Dope. Okay, so after you get the property, of course, you have to speak to the tenants and introduce yourself to them. How was that for you the first time?
I actually didn't want to meet the tenants. I wanted to be anonymous. That's what I wanted. But after we signed at the title place, me and the attorney was there. Not the attorney, the previous landlord. So he was like, let me show you around. So he's, showing me the building, the basement, all this stuff. And then he says, in a couple of days, you're going to collect rent. And I was like, wow. Because I closed on the 29th of June. So is it just 30 days in June? I can't remember, but I know I was collecting rent that weekend. So he knocked on everyone's door. He was like, this is your new landlord. This is who you're going to pay the rent to. Don't be late. And, because he's known them for a little while. So they're, joking and stuff. And I'm just standing there like, this is so weird. So weird. And so everybody's really nice to meet you. One tenant was like, hey, Miss Landlord, it's so nice to meet you. She's my sassy tenant that's always complaining, but she does pay her rent on time. But it was like a surreal experience, like, to be honest. And one tenant, he was like, can I pay you the rent now? And he had his money order together. I was like, okay, yeah, if you want to.
Yeah. Right.
And so I did spend the weekend there in the vacant unit because they had just, they delivered it with just 3 occupants, 3 tenants. And so there was a completely turned over unit that I'm staying in. And I was just like, when I was there, I was just bugging, like, I can't believe I bought a building.
Dope. So then it's that time where you go back home. Of course, you got to go back home and you end up going to work. If you could explain to me how your psyche changed from, prior to you having the building to it's Monday, you already collect the rent and now you're back at work.
So you feel like, but being very logical, I'm just like, I'm gonna have to do this several more times before I can, fire my job. But I did tell one of my coworkers, because he has been, he was the person I was bouncing things off of, and we're both about that fire life. And he was like, yo, you did it. I was like, yes. And I was showing him the keys via Teams. And he was like, I can't believe you did it. And he was like, now I know that I can do it, because somebody that I actually know has done it. So you might know a lot of people in your life that may own a single family, but there's not too many people that that owns like buildings where, they're collecting rent from someone and stuff like that. So he was like, you're the first person I know that owns a building. And so, I've been helping him with, getting his information together and for him to do the same thing. But I didn't want to share it like with too many people, because I don't know, some good things you just want to keep to yourself, because sometimes people can be hating on you or cause issues for you. So it's just something that I just shared with him, so nobody else at work knows.
Dope. So you get your first property. What is the timeline between that and you getting started in Turo?
Less than a month, actually. Ooh. So I closed on that building June 29th. We put the first car on Turo July 5th. So it was like really quick that, we got into that business. So the story with that is we already had, multiple cars. And again, because of the pandemic, we're not going anywhere. My husband works remote, I work remote, everybody's home. And he had bought me a Mercedes SL for Mother's Day like a few years ago. And I hardly ever drive it because I'm always home. Like, I'm a hermit. I don't, it's a beautiful gift, but it sits in the driveway for the most part. So I was like, why don't we put that on there? And he's like, are you crazy? And I'm like, I think it would do really well. It's like the start of summer, people want to flex. It's like a really good summer car. It's a convertible, it's a, coupe, it's really nice. And it took a little bit of prodding, but he finally was like, okay, let's do it. And within an hour, it was booked for the weekend. So that was the proof he needed that this would work and that he, would get on board. Because that wasn't something I wanted to just be like, I'm just going to do this myself. I wanted I wanted us to be doing things together. So the Turo business we do together, and then we have another real estate thing that we do together in Philly, but that's Burrs, and me and you, we have rentals, like pretty much turnkey rentals. But so it's cool because it was like, he was like, we got another rental. Can you drop the car off? Because I got a meeting, stuff like that. And it's just like, yeah, let's go.
Of course.
So, renters and, them loving the car and them, saying, oh, we're using the car for the wedding this weekend. So it's just like being part of people's experiences in a small way. It's like pretty cool.
Dope. So fast forward to today. I know you've grown your Turo fleet. If you could just speak on, the cars you have and what they do a month, probably on average.
Yeah, so we added an economy car, a Nissan Altima, and we added like a SUV, Audi Q7. And the reason why we did that is because we know, just from market research, economy cars just do well because they're low maintenance, the gas is cheap, stuff like that. And then with the SUV, there's a lot of families in this area, like a lot of, young families. So we wanted to have something else to offer, especially since we knew that winter would be coming and we would take the SL off of Turo, because a lot of people, they're not used to driving a sports car in like inclement weather. And we just didn't want to take any chances, even though Turo would, provide the insurance and cover it. We just, that's just a risk we didn't want to take. So then, just having those two cars, once we put the Altima on, that was booked for a month. And the Audi is booked almost every weekend, like for 4 days, like, so from Friday to Monday. And it's funny because, you look at where the people are going and they're like, oh, we're going to take a road trip to Florida. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it's just like, wow, like, we're helping these people do what they need to do, like be with their families for Thanksgiving and stuff like that. So right now we just have the two. We took the SL off of Turo because we just put new rims on it and it was $800. And it's just like, we just gonna let that baby sit for a while and just have the other two cars on there because the maintenance is a little bit cheaper.
Yeah. So you got a rental property, 4 units. You're about to get your next one. So let's just say 8.
Yes.
8 units, 3 Turo cars, and you're a full-time software developer, correct?
Yep.
Wow. So if you could you explain how your goals transitioned prior to you investing to, you actually investing and seeing, what you can kind of really get out of life?
Right. So that situation was able for me to really have a tangible idea of how I can change my life, because basically with your effort, you can, triple your money, quadruple your money. Whereas with work, if I'm putting out triple the work, I'm not making more money because I'm salaried. They're like, we already covered that when we hired you. That's what you're going to get paid, but we're going to work you like a mule. With the investments, I'm just like, okay, well, I'll just keep putting money aside and get my 3.5% up for the next property and purchase that, and just being very mindful of the numbers of the rents and making sure that they're market and, trying to buy a little bit undervalued properties so I can add a little value. Those things are always at the forefront of my mind now, because my thought is, what is my bottom line? When I close this deal, how much money am I going to be able to walk away from the deal with, and how much cash flow am I going to be able to make? And I'm also really cognizant and trying to work on my business credit so I can scale faster. So if I'm able to get $100,000 in business credit, I can take $20,000 and buy 5 properties and leverage, the mortgage payments, the cash flow to pay those cards off. Or, think about doing a BRRRR, because a BRRRR, depending on the numbers, you can walk away theoretically with $100,000 from the table.
What a BRRRR is for those that might not know what a BRRRR is.
Yeah, that is buy, rehab, rent, refi, and repeat. So it's just a framework that you want to follow if you are someone that wants to buy undervalued and distressed properties, fix them up, put a tenant in it, and hold on to it. And that's what I would do. I wouldn't flip and sell it unless it's like a monster deal. But right now, my goal is to have the cash flow so much so that it's matching my salary so that I can feel comfortable firing my job.
Dope. No, that's dope. If you could, can you speak on how it is working your 9 to 5 when the business is doing good compared to working your 9 to 5 when the business is kind of a little rocky? Because I don't think people explain that enough.
Yeah. So we made a decision not to touch any of the money to use it for our day-to-day. That's what our salaries are for. And we made a conscious decision to try to eliminate as much debt as possible so that we don't have so much of our salaries going out for debt payments or credit cards and stuff like that. So the business, so Turo, is self-sustaining. So any maintenance that needs to be done, it comes out of the Turo money. And that just helps keep everything separate because you want your business to be self-sustaining. So during the summer, business was booming because everybody was trying to go everywhere because they was having cabin fever, right? So the rentals was just like off the chain. Every time I turned around, the cars wasn't here because they had been rented, which is a great problem to have. And it also made us think about adding more cars to the fleet. So right now everything is slowed down a little bit, and that's fine too because we're thinking about restructuring so that we can have a full-on rental business as opposed to renting on Turo to remove the middleman, right? So while we have the rentals that's coming in, we're thinking about restructuring so we can have an even bigger business, if that makes sense. But through it all, it's a good thing that we have our jobs because when there's a drought with the cars, like if they didn't get rented for a week, we're not solely dependent on that money, and we're going to have to lack because of it. So even though when things was going good, that money just stayed in the bank and we didn't want to touch it so that the business can be self-sustaining for repairs and stuff like that. But it's really been transparent for us in terms of how it affects us working because we have to do that regardless. It only makes you think about your business in a sense of, tightening up your systems, diverting into something else. Like I said, having the standalone rental business as opposed to having it on Turo. So it just makes you rethink how you want to move forward.
Dope. No, that's a gem. That's a real gem. My last question for you is if you could speak to those that a lot of times when you have goals when you're in your 20s or you're younger, you feel like if you don't accomplish them, then it's too late. If you could you just speak on just how it's never too late and how, information that could just really take your life and what you're trying to do to the next level?
Oh my gosh. Exactly. It's never too late. I do have some girlfriends that are a little bit older or, and they're just like, it's too late for me to do something different. It's too late for me to, I'm just going to work this job and, hopefully my investments, your 401k, that type of thing will float you. But I'm just like, why would you give up just because you're a little bit older? If anything, you have more knowledge to work with in terms of understanding your risk tolerance, understanding how it's going to be beneficial to your family. And with the plethora of information on social media, there's really no reason for you not to be able to jump out there and chase your dream because there's people putting out information to tell you from A to Z how to do it. It's like a blueprint. All you have to do is follow it. Everybody say run the play. It's true. You buy the course and you run the play, and you get to dictate your success by how fast you can scale. So my thing is once you have the information and you solidify it and you act on it and you see, yes, this worked. I have social proof now that this works for me and my family. The sky's the limit. So that's my thing. If you want to accomplish something, if you have a goal in mind that you've had for years, it's not too late. Because when I was younger, I was just like, I would love to be a business owner. I would love to own property, but I just didn't have the knowledge. And because I was like in this hamster wheel of being, a young mom and trying to make everything happen, it became a dream deferred. But things still aligned because I still was able to come across the information for this era that would help me, achieve that goal. So I just tell people all the time, you just have to jump. You just have to jump, and you will figure it out as you go along. Because as with anything else, before you became a parent, you didn't know how to take care of a baby, but you figured it out. Same thing with this.
Thanks. Well, thank you for allowing me to interview you. I'm extremely motivated based off the stuff you're saying. If you could you let people know where to reach you and what you all do as far as your consulting goes?
Absolutely. Yes, you can reach me on Instagram, Zenadixoninc, and I provide consultations for individuals that are looking to buy their first multifamily property. A lot of times those calls are dispelling myths about FHA, or, how much down payment they need, or basically just giving them the encouragement, because I'm going to come with the facts and I'm going to come with, the resources. But a lot of times those calls are motivational calls to help people get over the hump of their fear. So I feel like it's an all-in-one. So I'm going to give you the facts and the resources, and I'm going to be your cheerleader, and I'm going to follow up with you to see if you need additional help, because I want to see you win. And a lot of times I would say 90% of my consultations have been women. And that's even more dear to my heart, because I'm a total advocate of women owning things. You should own things regardless if you're married or not. And so it gives me an even more boost to ensure that, I help them try to achieve some type of success with the consultations. And I know that you've been telling me you need to create the course. I'm going to sit down, I'm going to create that course, because I feel like that'll help reach more people when I can't handle a consultation because of time.
Dope. Well, thank you for allowing me to interview you. This is Tremaine, one half of the 9 to 5 CEO podcast. And we gonna just go ahead and wrap this joint on up.
Thank you.
All right.